this being Startup Café and a lot of founders here, I'm curious, what lessons as the founder can you share with everyone? Hello, travelers, and welcome to this episode of the Travel with Meaning podcast. Today's guest is actually no stranger to Travel with Meaning, to our show, or to our community. Laura Grier has been called the Indiana Jones of adventure photography. Laura's one of my favorite people, honestly. I met her actually at a Travel with Meaning event over 5 years ago. She's an amazing person with unreal stories, from discovering her family's CIA secrets, to driving cross country to LA and sleeping in her car, to going on the Wheel of Fortune to get money to get her first camera ever. 20 plus years later, as a photojournalist, she's worked for Huffington Post, Nat Geo, just to name a few. In 2019, she launched Andeana Hats, the ethical, responsible hat company created to help empower women of Peru. We have so much more we can talk about, but let's bring up Laura Grier. Big fan club, too. Hello. Let's do a hug. Let's All right, I will say this before we kind of dive in. I'm going to encourage everyone to go back and listen to one of our first podcast episodes, which was, I think, episode 7, to get Laura's backstory. And I'll say that. I mean, we talked about uncovering her parents are both undercover for CIA, which is crazy. Also, her first week here, being on Wheel of Fortune, also being booked on Love Island.
Oh my God, you're bringing my reality show past.
Because I want people to know, because I love your story. And I'm not going to say this, but I will. Also, season 1 of American Idol.
Yeah.
Right? Just want to give you context, because anyone who knows Laura, we like to say Laura is just a badass and then some. I don't know how you do it all. And then we start talking about her photography and all this crazy stuff.
You really just brought up all my reality stuff. But thank you, Mike. Yes.
I have clips too.
I mean, starting my 20s here in Los Angeles was really exciting, for sure. For sure.
Well, let's do this. We just talked about Japan with Jeffrey, and I know you just had a very unique trip to Japan. So I'd love for you to kind of unpack why you went and some of the experiences you did, just to kind of, I guess, really piggyback off what Jeffrey was talking about.
Oh my gosh, well, yes. Jeffrey, Japan's one of my favorite places. My recent trip in April to Japan was to photograph Cyndi Lauper's final international concert. And we were in Osaka, and then we took a train to Kyoto and did all kinds of fun photo shoots. But I have to say, as a scuba diver, I love Japan. We went down to Yonaguni Island in the south, where all the hammerhead sharks are, and there's this sunken pyramid that nobody knows if it's naturally formed or, from like 10,000 years ago. And when I heard that there was an unknown pyramid off the coast of Japan that you could scuba dive, I was like, I'm there. So that's why we went to go down there and do that.
I didn't realize there was like a pyramid down there. I knew there was the hammerhead sharks.
Oh, yeah. No, there's a pyramid there that's sunken that you can swim into and explore.
That's crazy. Mm-hmm. So one thing you'll get with Laura, and again, I'm going to encourage you again, go back, give her a follow on Instagram. Because the thing you get with Laura is you don't just get a traveler, you get incredible pictures. So, and also if you befriend her, which her good friend Cameron tends to travel a lot with her, you get incredible images like this, right? You're not just getting family photos from Japan. You're getting amazing pictures.
No, it's true. I mean, we loved it. I call them goddess shoots, but we can photograph men too, but they tend to be a lot of female-focused photo shoots, and usually it's on theme to wherever we are. And I find that you learn a lot about people when you photograph them in goddess attire, and a lot of times we'll buy fabric from local communities and places and wrap ourselves in it and just do photo shoots that kind of lend to the area that we're in. So,
well, that's going to go perfectly with our next slides. I will say though, I've known you 5+ years. I've been begging for shoots and trips for guys for years, but we'll come back to that.
Okay.
We'll come back to that. All right. I think you just hit on something that's really key for Laura Grier. Again, you're not just going to go do a trip. You did Mount Kilimanjaro in 2022.
Yes.
Was it 2022?
Yeah.
With a group of women. But in true Laura Grier fashion style, we don't just do a trip or a trek. It was a whole photo shoot that went with it.
Yeah. Well,
give us backstory and tell us where all this is.
So Kilimanjaro in the local folklore is actually a goddess, and the mountain herself is a goddess. And if you summit Kilimanjaro, you unleash your goddess in their local folklore. So I loved that idea. And I also loved that there are 7 or 8 different microclimates on Kilimanjaro. So my idea was every day we were going to do a fashion shoot at each microclimate, the rainforest, the lava fields, the Arctic zone, the meadows, the forests. And so each woman was a goddess for the day. So every day we had decided which woman on each trip that would be her day. And it didn't matter how sick or tired you were, how covered in rain and mud, unshowered, whatever. Whenever that woman of that day says, I'm inspired right here, right now, I want to do a photo shoot, it was like a pit crew. We set our clocks for 30 minutes. Everyone had a job. Like, you help her get dressed, you put jewelry on her, we're do lighting, we're do behind the scenes. And we did a 30-minute fashion shoot of their choice. They could be without clothing, they could be with fabric that we bought, they could have brought their own outfit. And so these are some of the shots that we got while we were on the mountain. And I have to say, this was about 8 hours before we summited. That's the top of Kilimanjaro. So it was an 8-day hike, really strenuous. You get up to, 19,341 feet. And it was awesome because everyone felt really, it broke up the hiking, but B, all the other male hikers that were like struggling and suffering, and they would come around the corner, we're all like sitting there, I'm like holding a hiking pole with light at the end of it, we're all like doing a fashion shoot, and we definitely had the most fun on the mountain. But I loved the images that came out of it because we were celebrating unleashing all of our inner goddess. And a lot of the women that went on the trip were going through, beating cancer, a divorce, or like a hardship, and they all chose to kind of do this trek to overcome something. So it was actually, therapy. It was like fashion therapy. And every night we had discussions around dinner in our tents and like talking about how we felt and everything. And it was just a really magical trip.
Also, the porters you had, there was a unique kind of aspect to that.
Yeah, so I hiked with all female porters. That was another thing too, is that the women don't usually have that job, and a lot of the women wanted to have that job. So we were sort of breaking barriers by having all female porters. And we had 50 porters supporting our group, carrying all of our stuff up the mountain, all the water we needed, all of our food, it was amazing. We had an army with us.
Has anyone ever climbed Kilimanjaro here? Cool.
Yeah.
So you can imagine, it was
So
probably
did you do
strenuous.
shoots like this when you were climbing Kilimanjaro?
Yeah, you did a shoot. Yeah, right. I want to, again, I keep bringing up stuff to Laura because you are one of my favorite people, but I think it's always like there's traveling and then there's Laura Grier traveling. And that's where I think this Kilimanjaro experience really is next level. I mean, these pictures with the crows, it looks like it's Photoshop. I think you said they just literally showed up.
There were tons of ravens there. It was kind of bizarre, actually. But honestly, I say this even for my photography-related adventures, or even just when I'm on a job, I always think that you should have an intention going into a photo shoot or a story in your mind. The story might change along the way, but your images are going to be better and flow and work together. Because a lot of people, when they do travel photography, they'll see, oh, that's a wrinkly old woman, she's cool, I'm gonna steal her portrait. And they just take these like disparate pictures on their travels of like, oh, I love this food, or that tree is really cool, and there's no story linking it together. So I always like to have a theme or a story that links my images together when I'm traveling.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I think it probably goes a lot back with even your, not just roots growing up, but your mindset here. We talked a lot about just getting through things and keep pushing forward, and 20 plus years, you're still doing this.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna go to this. We're gonna go the hike that started this mission. And kind of talked about mindset and everything. Things just kind of flow, and I feel like there's a really good flow with you sometimes. So we've talked about you're a photographer, 20 plus years, Nat Geo. Your first time going to Peru kind of was a wonderful, happy accident on some level. So I want you to unpack this, and then we're gonna really get into you as a founder, you as a business, and then why Peru is so magical.
Yeah, Peru is so magical. I play in a co-ed soccer league here on the west side and have for about 20 plus years. And when I was younger, like 18, 19, my first photo job was working at the CIA. My second job was working at Nat Geo at headquarters.
Sorry, I have to interrupt you because this is my favorite thing I have to say. If it didn't work out for you in LA, what was your fallback plan?
My fallback plan was to be a spy and work back at the CIA. They offered me a job out of college, and I opted to live out of my car and move to LA first to try it out. first before I did that. My parents were like, "What are you thinking?"
Okay, I'm
But
sorry.
I just had never left, home, and I wanted to explore. But that job was really interesting, but it wasn't the way I wanted to travel because I didn't want to be traveling under alias and not be able to talk about what I do. And I'm an oversharer anyway, so it was not the right fit for me. But for me, I had worked at headquarters in DC, and they had just launched their artisan catalog, and this was back in 99, 2000. And then I've been playing, cut to, I moved to LA, I've been playing co-ed soccer, and 15 years later, it's like the same people I've been playing soccer with every Monday night, and I was just next to them putting on shin guards, and we never talked about what we did for a living. And the guy was like, "Oh, I just saw that you're a travel photographer. I didn't know that. Our photographer got sick and we need someone to go to Peru." And he was the CEO. We exchanged numbers. I was like, "Yeah, emails. Totally, I can totally help you out." And when I exchanged emails, he was already in my email, not from soccer. He had been my point of contact 10, 15 years before when I worked in headquarters at Nat Geo in DC. And he was the one who started the artisan catalog, and he was the CEO of the catalog. And meanwhile, I'd never met him. We've just been emailing back and forth when I was an intern. And then years later, he's on my soccer team and invited me to shoot for them in Peru. And then the rest was history. I kept on going to all the regions around the world and working with artisans. And that's how I got introduced to the artisans that make our hats. And you just never know what's going to happen, or like the connection was there all along and you just hadn't put yourself out there.
But you'd spent a lot of time like with the Quechua and everyone prior to, as you said, before even the idea of launching a hat. You've been there probably half a dozen times.
Yeah, and so with the artisan catalog, I have been shooting fashion shoots for them, but also they had me do interviewing the artisans on like how they give back or how it benefits their communities, and also I was training local photographers too, because I can't always fly down there and do stuff. But also they would have me do these like day in the life of with the artisans. So I did a lot of homestays with different artisans where I would be photographing the experience. And that was how I initially came in contact with the Quechua, who are the women that weave all the bands on our hats and work with them with the alpaca wool hats. And so yeah, it first started with just photographing through Nat Geo, and I just noticed that it's hard. They have this beautiful work. It's so insane, like what they do. And a lot of these women have to hike 8 hours down to a marketplace to sell some belts. And it was, I'm just thinking about how talented they are, and how I was like, I need to bring this back to the US somehow, the hats that I saw. And so that slide that you showed before, the hike that started it all, this is the beginning of a 4-day hike to the Rainbow Mountains where my job was actually to photograph the highest altitude lodge in the world. And we were hiking lodge to lodge and not prepared for this trip at all. And this is the very first image I took of the very first 2 minutes of the hike, where the guide who's in front of me was like, yeah, so we're just gonna hike over that mountain range, and then the one after that, and then we'll stop for lunch, and then there's like maybe 4 more hours, and then we'll get to the first lodge. And I was like, what? And this was just like how I started, like, okay, I guess I'm hiking over those 2 snow-covered mountains. We each had an alpaca with us with our luggage on it, and that was how we hiked to the hotel. And I had to shoot and work along the way, and it was like one of the most difficult things I had ever done. Wow. But this is where the idea of Andeana Hats started, because as we're hiking through this epic journey through the mountains, we were going through all these villages, and each village has a different style hat. And you can see some of the hats here. This isn't chincheros, but some of these are, they have the bowler hat, or they'll have like these flipped upside down hats with tassels, and they're all so unique. So I was photographing all the different hats as we came across them. And the guide on the trip was like, "Oh my gosh, your friend is obsessed with these hats." And my girlfriend at the time was like, "You don't understand." She's like Indiana Jones of photography. And I said, "More like Andeana Jones." And then, because I love a good pun. And then we were in the Andes. And then we both kind of stopped. We're like, that would be a cool name for a hat company. And then that was the idea on that hike. And then the rest of the hike, we kind of took our minds off of the lack of oxygen. We were coming up with a business plan and like figuring out how we could do this.
And so that's when everything was born, right? So the 2019, you officially launched the company.
We officially launched the company right before COVID.
Right before the COVID.
Right before they shut the borders down.
Right. Didn't you like just get back? You were in Peru?
No, I was in Peru the day they shut down the borders, and I barely got out on the very last flight on standby to the United States before they shut down the borders. My flight had actually gotten canceled, and I somehow got on the last flight out. It was really, really stressful time. I was like, well, if I get stuck down here for 8 months, my Spanish will be really good, but I don't know. That was how we got our first shipment out. We had about 8 boxes of hats that we just had. It was our very first production. And I gave a box like Oprah to each person that was on the retreat with me. I'm like, you take a box, you take a box. I'm like, get this box out of the country because I knew they were about to shut the borders down. And then that was how we got, I think we got maybe 200 hats out of the country. And then that was it. But we had started the company and we were able to at least place orders with the women and send money to them, which really helped during that time because they had no tourism dollars. They were really cut off, especially the indigenous communities, from the rest of the world during COVID. And a lot of them were starving. And yes, they grow their own food and all of that, but they didn't have a lot of opportunities. So at least we felt like we were able, it was perfect timing to start the company where we could send money down and help them out during that time.
Let's talk about that a little more, because this whole empowering of the women there, right? And I know you've shared in our conversation in the past that it's the men who go out and they, whether they, they hunt or they gather, they're the ones earning the keep. But what you've been able to do is kind of flip the table on that. And now the women are actually making a lot more money.
Yeah, so when some of the communities that we work with, the men were guides at Machu Picchu, and they were maybe making, I don't know, $30, $40 a month or something. At the time, they weren't making a lot of money. And the women, like I said, would have to just hike long distances to sell in different marketplaces and be away from their kids and their animals and their homes. And so now they can work from their homes. A lot of the men have stopped working and are taking care of the kids and the animals and the farming and all of that, while the women are the breadwinners and they're at home on their own schedule, weaving or working. And then we, with our nonprofit partnerships, go to them, to their villages, and we do the quality control. We get all the hats and the weavings, and we ship it to the United States and everything. So they don't have to hike down anywhere and do that.
So you've gone from now being a renowned photojournalist to now founder of a company. And there are a couple of people here wearing the hats, and actually, I have a hat. My dad actually rocks a red hat everywhere.
Oh my God, your dad is my favorite. He's like our octogenarian influencer.
It's true. Everyone stops him though when he wears a hat.
He buys red outfits to match his red cowboy hat that he bought. It's like the best thing ever.
It's actually true. So this company's launched. Now you're out in the world. I want you to talk about the intention bands.
Yeah.
I want you to talk about that story. But now as a founder, how are you interweaving kind of your stories of travel and taking people with you?
Yeah. So and it's funny because I've got Abby in the crowd here too. She has a brand, an amazing alpaca cape brand, and also sells jewelry from different Huni tribes in the Amazon as well. And so we collaborate a lot, but we're also collaborating on our trips, which I'll talk about in a second. But we wanted to we're like, why is this hat brand? Like, why are people going to buy these hats? Like, what makes them special? And then when I was talking to the artisans, I found that the bands the Quechua language is a woven language, and it's an oral language. So all of their history, their traditions for years is actually passed down through the weavings. The band I'm wearing right now is Mayu, which means river, and this is the river pattern. And it means purpose. It's a river flows in one direction. It might change course along the way, but it ends up where it's meant to be, sort of. You with your purpose, you end up where you're meant to be. So we found out that all the different designs that have been passed down for centuries, all have different meanings. So I love the idea of having, preserving their cultural heritage, preserving their woven language, and also having the spirituality of the hats, because also in Quechua culture, your hat covers your third eye chakra, your crown chakra. It guards your energy, but it also emphasizes and sort of sends out your intention to source, what you wear on your hat. So the way you decorate your hat says a lot about you energetically. And so I love that idea, we could call these intention bands, and people can be really conscious about what they wear and decide what intention, because you can take the band off and put whatever one you want on, and you can decide for the day what your intention is going to be. And, and I just thought that was such a beautiful thing. And that's sort of what's unique and recognizable about our hats. And then on top of that, we thought, well, we're already coming down to Peru. What if we, since obviously my love of travel and photography is my first love, why don't we incorporate all of this? So we have philanthropic adventure trips down to Peru, where we bring a group, everyone gets a hat that goes on the trip. You get to meet the artisans, you get to learn about their culture, spend a week down in the Sacred Valley, and really understand the level of commitment and work that goes in. I mean, it takes 3 weeks for one hat to be made, and from the brushing of the alpaca and the spinning the wool and the picking the leaves and the flowers to naturally dye them to all the weavings, everything. It's insane to see the amount of work that goes into it. And we just wanted people to understand super slow fashion and why it's really important right now as a shopper to be a conscious shopper and to not be just buying everything for $30 on Amazon and destroying the planet in the process. So yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. And the thing you brought up is like the actual time, right? The care, the intention that goes into building this. And we're just seeing this side of it, right? You're selling the hats, you're in the States, but there was a lot of work even getting a chance for you to connect with the artisans or be there and do some of the stuff yourself.
Well, yeah. I mean, and we've also built relationships for years with them. I mean, I can't just roll up into a community and like ask a bunch of women to make hats for me. And same thing with the tourism stuff. I mean, if I hadn't had the Nat Geo connection where I'd met a lot of these artisans and had that relationship before, I couldn't have started this company. And same thing with the trips, because we have this access, we can put together really amazing curated experiences that the average traveler can't do. Like you can't just walk into these villages and learn how to weave and have them make lunch for you and stay with them or what, they don't normally do that. So I don't know, we just wanted to be able to bridge the gap between sort of the modern and the indigenous world, because I think right now we sort of need each other. We need to go back to our roots and learn how to take care of the earth, and they need to be able to connect to the global marketplace and digitalize their designs and their work. And I think we help each other.
Who's been to Peru? Who wants to go to Peru?
Oh my gosh.
Who wants to go to Peru with Laura?
Yeah, you guys are all welcome. We're definitely going to be doing a trip in November. We haven't fully launched it yet, but we will be doing our next trip in November.
Really? Do you know when?
November.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot on the podcast here, but if we did.
Between like the 13th, before Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Yeah, not like on Thanksgiving.
Does that work for everyone? Let's all go. I'm in. I want to go on this trip.
I mean, you've been talking about it forever. It's my special place.
I want to kind of keep coming back a little bit to this conversation of the nonprofit, of empowering women, and your connection to Peru, because you've been there multiple times before even this idea came to be.
Yes.
And it is still, as much it's a business now. How does that kind of interflow for you between a business but also that mission?
I think that people think that just because you have a for-profit that you can't do good or give back, or it's like bad for business or something to be set up almost like a 501c3. We do have a 501c3 called My Mission, it was easier to set that up to help with a lot of other projects that we wanted to fund, because we've just been self-funding projects through the profits of Andeana Hats. And so finally we're like, we might as well start a nonprofit to do that. But I think that everyone can do good through what they're already doing. And I think I realized that in my 40s, when I turned 40, I decided the word for my 40s was intention. And I realized I'm already traveling, I'm already doing all these things, but I could do it in a way where it's giving back and still having fun doing it, even with the trips. It's sort of like forced philanthropy with the trips, because everyone was going on these trips with me, but why not build it in where you're giving back to the local community or doing, a really fun adventure, and you just build an extra $500 a person in, and it goes a long way in some of these communities. And it's hard to walk up to a person and be like, hey, do you want to donate $500 to my 501c3? They're like, no, I don't actually. But if you create a really awesome experience for them, they have no problem having that built in. So I think it's more about making it really fun and knowing that even with just buying your fashion, you're doing good and you're supporting like an entire family. So
I wanted to go back and just put some of these images on the screen from your trips, your group trips, and talk about, you had that aha moment there. And a lot of the founders in the room talk about being on trips and kind of having that inspiration, or the companies we talked about, the Starbucks, the Lyft. Anyone from the trips that you've taken them on, has things kind of sparked inside them to either start something new or do something or anything kind of life transformational?
Yeah, actually, Janessa, who you know, on our Kilimanjaro trip, she decided she'd saved all this money to buy a house and it wasn't working out for her. And she's like, I don't want to know what to do. I want to make, so she decided to buy a Pure Barre franchise. And now she's a small business owner and as well. And it was like you don't always have to have the traditional, like, okay, I buy a house, whatever. You can buy a business. And so she was kind of inspired to start a small business herself. And, now she's doing pop-ups and things, and she was asking advice. But I think sometimes it was just a passion of hers. She always loved working out, and she had a ballet background. And so now she has this awesome business where she's also helping a lot of women reach their fitness goals or feel better about themselves. So it was, she was inspired to do that on one of our trips.
I just want to bring that up because I think transformational travel is a big buzzword, which, again, I think a lot of us can connect and relate to, but also regenerative travel, which we talked about. And so I wanted you to share a little bit about what that is from the frame of what you do.
Yeah, so it's really funny. So most of you guys have heard the word sustainable. It's been like beaten over our heads for years now, and it's funny because like the travel show that we always go to in New York in January, they always have like what's trending in travel, and it was like sustainable travel, and it was travel like and they had all these like buzzwords, experiential travel, and then this year it's regenerative, and why it's regenerative is we've kind of effed up the world so much right now that sustainable just doesn't cut it anymore. Like we can't actually we're not going to push the needle unless we actually leave a place better than we found it. And so regenerative travel or regeneration is about leaving a place better than you found it. And that's whether it's through agriculture or fashion or travel or whatever the vertical is. So in travel, it's about, like, are you going to plant trees where you were? Or are you going to help local communities? Are you going to do things where when you leave that place, you're not just extracting from it. You're not just going in there to a market and buying some stuff from some tourist souvenirs and like leaving. What are you doing that can actively help? And that's been sort of the really important topic now because we're at a kind of a point of no return where we all need to do our part to like really, really make things better than we found them. So I think that's been the buzzword, and that's what we wanted to do with our trips as well.
I want to just kind of talk about Andeana for a moment. Again, I see you at pop-ups everywhere, whether it's a Venice Fest or this or that. You're everywhere. You hustle nonstop. Besides buying hats in the room, what do you want people to know? How can they help you? What's the next, I guess, steps for you as a founder and your business?
Honestly, the spreading the word, I mean, buying the hats helps, going to the website, buying the hats and all that things are, storytelling opportunities like this are really great because I love to storytell, but I think that's when we really get people to understand our brand and our mission. Even donating to My Mission, even if it was $25, when we were doing $50 donations over the holidays, that was supporting one woman to have entrepreneurial monthly meetings with food for a year. So like $50 to us is nothing. I spend way more than that on coffee a month, but it's like things like that can really help our programs. But honestly, it's about just spreading the mission and the word. And even if you don't buy anything from us, just being more conscious and aware of where you shop and what you buy and how you can move the needle through being a conscious shopper and what you decide to buy. And, I think now that I understand like how a well-made hat is and I see all these other chintzy hats that you can buy and have delivered very next day at your house from China, it just like hurts my heart to think about how bad that is for the environment. And just being able to shift where you buy your goods really can help like a lot of people and help the environment. So even if it's just shifting your mindset and thinking about that is what I would ask from everyone. But I do invite you guys to go to myumission.org and see all of our programs. We are doing everything from trying to protect Indigenous IP. We want to scan their designs and document their oral history so we can legally license their designs to big brand names. Patagonia just did a partnership with Indigenous group where they are licensing their designs for straps on their bags and things like that because historically, like fashion designers have been stealing Indigenous designs for years and just making them their own, and none of that goes back to the artisans. So we want to make it where they can make royalties off their work. That's just one of the many projects that we want to fund with our nonprofit.
Every traveler does need a hat, especially like with a hairline like mine. But I normally would wear a hat, but I couldn't, overpower the stage here with two hats. Travelers who are interested in joining in Peru. You have a newsletter. I have a newsletter. Check out the site, right?
Yeah, definitely. Go to AndeanaHats.com. Join our newsletter. We're going to be announcing the trip dates soon. And also My Mission, both on Instagram, Andeana Hats and My Mission, each have their own account. We'll definitely be we'll be announcing the trips on there. There's also other opportunities too. Like if you were just going to Peru on your own already and wanted to be set up to go visit our artisans or anything like that, we can help you with that too.
Cool. This being Startup Café and a lot of founders here, I'm curious, what lessons as the founder can you share with everyone?
I was told that if you had a product, you could make money while you're sleeping. that has not been the case here. You're right. I hustle a lot, and even in photography, after 25 years, I'm still hustling. I've decided to create 2 businesses where me being there has been a big part of it. And obviously storytelling is a big part of it, but I am learning my lesson about having to delegate and like have help and accept help. I do everything myself all the time. So aligning myself with other people that help and has been a big deal for me. But I think a lot of these things, it's just, I wanted people to understand why the hats are different. And so a lot of times that involves me being there and storytelling like this. And yeah, I think just realizing that it's really hard. Nat Geo had never sold the hats in their catalog. We sell our hats in their catalog, and we were the first hats, brand to be in their catalog. And the reason they didn't is they said, it's going to be a logistical nightmare to get these hats from these indigenous villages, and they don't have like a written language access to the internet or speak English. And you want to place online orders with them? And I was like, how hard could that be? So I decided to take that challenge on and get the hats to the Nat Geo headquarters. And then I realized, they weren't wrong. It's really, really difficult. But it's rewarding. So I will say for founders, it's like, thank God for ChatGPT and talking to other founders and just asking and not being afraid to be like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I really don't. I didn't know the first thing about international shipping, customs certificates, retail. I would be on meetings with people that are like, what's your MOQ? And I'm like Googling what MOQ means. And I have no idea. There's so many times that I feel like I'm in over my head, and it's okay. It's okay to say I actually don't know what you meant by that, or use chat or figure it out. But I've always been service-based. I've been a photographer. So I'd never had to do retail or any of this stuff. And I think once, sometimes if you act like you know what you're doing, people won't help you. So if you need help, you should maybe just say it's okay. I actually need help right now. I'm drowning a little bit. And I think that would be my biggest lesson to any business owner, because we're all proud and embarrassed to be I don't know what I'm doing here. So, and I've had many of those moments. I have them on a weekly basis.
Well said. Now you're constantly on the move. So, what does travel actually mean to you?
Oh my gosh. Travel for me is a big reset on my life. Especially with being we're in this negative news spin right now where I'm just getting fed all this horrible stuff, and you leave the US and you go somewhere and you realize that the rest of the world isn't in this bubble necessarily that we're in, and you can get so caught up being oh my God, I gotta pay my rent, and I've got Pilates, and then I've gotta go here, I gotta wash my car, and I didn't ship that, and that, and then you go somewhere where everything just slows down and everyone's super connected to the earth, and people don't care about Studio MDR and all your going to the gym or whatever. It's just a different life. And I think for me, I realize that we overcomplicate our lives, and it's a choice. I choose to do it. But I also need that constant reminder that that's not what it's all about all the time, and to disconnect and to reset and ground myself. And I think travel does that for me. It almost my comfort zone is being out of my comfort zone, if that makes sense. I feel I get peace when I'm out in the world, even if it's a place I've never been with strangers in a different language. It's just, it's refreshing for me to get a different perspective. And I think I honestly learn more and I'm more tolerant about the world and about people around me through my experiences than I ever learned in school. I had an experience in Egypt where I got separated from my sisters and never saw them again for 3 months. They just went on a different trip, and I was upset. And this local family with these kids found me and my girlfriend. They took us in for 3 days and cooked us this huge feast, and until we got settled and reconnected with our other friends and stuff. And I remember thinking, I couldn't imagine in the U.S. that would happen if there were 3 Muslim teenagers that just showed up and were lost, and you just take them in and cook them food for a week. And there's just it was this hospitality that I experienced in that moment was eye-opening, and it changed my entire perspective on the Middle East and a lot of the families and the culture there. And it's something I learned through travel. And there's just many, many millions of instances like that. But I think I learn about other people's perspectives and what's actually going on in the world. I feel the real news is what you learn, the news that's being broadcast in Europe and everywhere else is the real news of what's happening in the world. I don't feel it's very real here in the U.S.
You were separated for 3 months?
I mean, my sisters and I didn't see each other. It's not like I couldn't have called them, but we just didn't see each other again for 3 months. It wasn't like I was kidnapped and yeah.
Okay, I'm just making sure. That was like,
no,
again,
we got separated and then we just never met up again.
And her stories are like, I've never heard that one before. That was like 3 months. That was incredible.
The point was about that. The point was that this family took us in. But anyway.
I get that.
Yeah.
I didn't know if this is another amazing Laura Grier story. Let's give it up for Laura Grier.
Thanks, guys.
So I'm going to open it up for questions in a moment. But before we do that, with every Travel with Meaning episode, we play a speed round of questions.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to put you on the hot seat. Okay. How's everyone doing? Everyone still good? All right. Again, people still want to go to Peru?
Woo-hoo! Yes, my favorite place on the planet.
Sure. All right. So we're going to play a speed round. We're going to put 60 seconds on the clock. You ready?
Yeah.
And go. What is your current country count?
101.
Place you still want to visit?
Madagascar.
Place you tell people to visit?
Peru.
Guidebook or phone app?
Phone app.
Window or aisle?
Aisle.
Mountains or beach?
Mountains.
Airbnb or hotel?
It depends on for what reason, but Airbnb.
Boat or train?
Boat.
Kindle, hard copy?
Hard copy.
Sunrise, sunset?
Sunset.
Do you collect anything from your travels?
Pillowcases. And ornaments, weird ornaments.
The thing you need on a flight?
Book and, I don't know. Yeah, pillow, book, I don't know.
Best travel lesson?
Best travel lesson. Like use Google Translate for everything. I don't know. Is that my lesson? No, sure. Like this is my favorite app. Travel lesson. I don't know. Listen to stories.
Favorite national park?
What?
Favorite national park?
Yellowstone.
Favorite airline?
American.
Favorite hotel?
I mean, I like the luxury Amans.
Favorite food?
Indian food.
Favorite place in the world?
I mean, Peru, but the Amazon.
The Amazon.
Yeah.
Let's give it up for Laura Grier.
Yeah.
And before we go to questions, I do have to point out, of course, we keep talking about all your adventure photography. She's also an incredible wedding photographer. So anyone getting married, know anyone getting married, this is also really how you've built your business here over the last 20 plus years of just doing incredible weddings or even getting flown places to then have your travels really start kind of evolving from that, right?
Yeah, and there were some crazy weddings. I did one in like an ice chapel with reindeer in Finland, and then I've done underwater weddings. I've done in caves. I've had some crazy, because of my travels, I get hired to do random weird weddings too, which is
there's
fun.
Always a story, right? There's always something. Anyone have a question for Laura?
2 questions. One is, what is your most favorite first travel memory? And the second one is, where are you going next?
Honestly, we lived abroad when I was younger, and so my first memories were honestly in Bali. And so for me, like when I was 3 or 4 years old, and so whenever I go back to Bali, because one of the Nat Geo headquarters is there, it's the smells and the sounds. It just honestly feels like home to me. So I think I have a special place in my heart for there. Our next big trip I'm leading a trip to Greenland, Iceland. We're going to the northern Arctic to see northern lights and the glaciers and everything. So we're doing a group trip on cruising from Iceland to Greenland in September.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's 26 people. It's going to be really epic. We all got polar bear onesies for everyone to wear on the trip.
I will say this also, again, more stories than we have time for today. Episode 7 of the podcast, I think there was also like 25 where we did maybe 2 other episodes together where you talk about Antarctica and you talk about other things as well. Any other questions for Laura?
Yeah.
It was mentioned something about American Idol. Are you able to
Yes.
explain what that is all about?
Okay, so season 1, nobody knew what American Idol was here because it was like British Idol or whatever it was before. And so I was singing karaoke at Barney's Beanery in West Hollywood, and I was scouted for American Idol. And I thought it was like a karaoke game show. Nobody knew what it was. And so they just said, can you show up at the Hollywood Athletic Club? And, and you have to audition. You have to have 2 songs prepared, singing a cappella, which I had never done either. And so I said, sure. And so Ryan Seacrest ushered me in the room, didn't know who he was. And there was a huge room, like twice the size of this, with about 100 people with cameras and a big X on the floor and a table with 3 people sitting. And I had to go stand in the X and sing these 2 songs. And it was Randy, Paula, and Simon, my very first audition ever. Like I didn't audition to get to them. Like they were my first audition. And I recognized Paula Abdul. I didn't recognize the other two people. And I was like, what the hell is happening right now? And I sang, and then Simon cut me off twice. And then he was like, well, I can tell you're not trained, but you're a breath of fresh air, though. He was like, you're going to Hollywood. I'm like, I'm in Hollywood right now. And then I was like, what now? And then they actually took us to Pasadena, and we had a 2-week effed up music camp in Pasadena. We were locked in the convention center. It was Kelly Clarkson, like all of us there. We had to spend 2 weeks together singing and auditioning and dancing, and we weren't allowed to call home or anything. We were like stuck in the Pasadena Convention Center, which was
Sequestered.
Hollywood. Yeah. And so I made it, like I was on the first couple of episodes, and when they voted down to 10, I did not make that vote because I had to leave for my sister's wedding. And I don't know if I would have made the 10, but I was in the room where they like decided who was like getting voted or not. And I didn't get in that room because I was like, sorry, I got to leave on a plane tonight for my sister's wedding. But my sister later on was like, well, I would have understood if you missed it because everyone got famous that I had been with. And I'm like, no, you wouldn't have. You would have never spoken to me again if I didn't go to your wedding. But it was a really cool experience. But yeah, that was my American Idol. But the first few episodes, they had a slow motion shot of me ripping off my number when I got like thrown out, like, voted off. And that was for 2 years, like on the commercial for American Idol. It was like me slowly like taking my number off. Yeah.
I will say, experiencing karaoke with Laura is definitely also a highlight. So whether it's the Whaler or somewhere else, if there's karaoke or someone in the room, she'll definitely get up. Yeah. Last question. Anyone? All right. So I know Laura Grier has to run out because, of course, she has a shoot. No, she actually has a shoot that she has to leave to. So let's give it up one more time for Laura Grier.
Thank you, guys.
I appreciate you.